Yes, guys, what's happening? And welcome back to the channel. And tomorrow afternoon, Chelsea return to Premier League action at Stamford Bridge, where they take on Wolverhampton Wanderers in what is really kind of a must-win game for Chelsea in terms of finally securing that top four and returning to winning ways after two winless games at Man United and the disaster up looming as well. In a week's time, we could really do with rolling into that with a win under the belts. But as always, there's plenty to discuss with Chelsea. Matters off the pitch, matters on the pitch as well. I'm delighted to be joined by Laurenz again, mate. Thank you so much for your time as always. Really appreciate you coming on. Mate, so much to get stuck into. Obviously, we had earlier in the week, we had the nonsense from certain reporters about Roman wanted his loan back and that potentially Chelsea were going to go out of business, which was a load of bollocks and sensationalised kind of scaremongering. That was swiftly put to bed by Roman's statement himself, obviously, saying that he couldn't repay, he couldn't write the loan off for legal reasons. So that was cleared up itself. And now it seems that pretty much this saga that seems to have dragged on for the longest time possible is now nearing the end. Bowley very much in the driving seat. It's going to be him. And I'm just going to bring this, before I bring it up on the screen, mate, what were your thoughts very briefly on that rubbish, that reports that kept coming out about, the club that could go out of business and all that nonsense? It was pathetic, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really felt like, the fact that Roman Abramovich with his statement, basically ridiculed so much of it is very interesting because, on the one hand, I'm like, I want to just believe everything Roman says. On the other hand, I'm like, are really all of these sources supposed to be wrong? It's weird. I believe it. I back it. I'm a big fan of him ridiculing everyone and everything, essentially. But it's like, these man either need to fix up because this is just awful journalism or something mad is going on. But going back to your actual question in terms of, we could go under as a club, cease from existence, essentially. That was always going to be absolute horse crap. Everyone was like, 31st of May, if it's not done then. And then there was if it's not done by today, this Friday, everything's in a mud. I'm like, calm down, man. As if, even if it weren't done by the 31st of May, as if they wouldn't grant us another, short-term license for another, week or whatever it is necessary at that point. To still make something happen. It's hilarious. It's honestly hilarious. But hey, at the end of the day, seems like Roman is not screwing us over and making sure we're okay.
Yeah, he was never going to do that. I think he loves the club too much, and he would never do something that he didn't think was in the best interest for the club. But it just goes to further show that how much the media hate us and how certain journalists, certain outlets have got a set agenda against the club, which I think is, it's pretty poor taste from those individuals.
Sky didn't even say that they were wrong. Essentially,
they didn't even apologise for it. It was complete nonsense.
No admittance of being wrong at all.
And it's not just just kind of like a run of the mill reporter for Sky. It's a senior correspondent chatting utter bollocks. And
I'm not sure if the Times have apologised or said anything because they were the first ones to break it.
Yeah. I don't know, but either way, we kind of expect it now, sort of just people just chatting shit about the club. But, mate, moving on to the next, obviously, we're almost there now. I just want to bring something up on the screen because it's easier than me trying to remember it. And big up to Ben Jacobs, by the way, who across this whole thing has been pretty much spot on, with everything. And just read the latest update this was from earlier today, about a couple of hours ago, that Clearlake and Bowley are entering into their final day of exclusive talks and expect to sign a purchase agreement to buy Chelsea. There are a number of logistical steps once a final deal is reached. This includes the EPL's O&D test, government approval, and transfer of funds. That's a bit to read through here. Basically, a legally binding sale agreement does not have to be signed by today. The parties will continue beyond Friday if they need to. There is confidence they won't have to, but it's not a rigid deadline. And from final negotiations to an actual sale, 2 weeks will likely be needed. That's fine. Don't need to worry about that bit. The government are content freezing the debt and are also comfortably in a position to approve a sale before May 31st. The official line remains CFC special license will not be extended beyond that. It's being called a hard deadline. And obviously, if anything were to go wrong, Rain would turn to Sir Martin Broughton, and so Jim Ratcliffe is not the backup. Rain are not prepared to engage with the Nice owner at this stage, having already communicated in writing he is not part of the process. Unclear at this stage how an announcement will be made. CFC executives have been asked to draft a statement, which is likely to be a joint one. They still may wait beyond just a signed sale agreement, told that the government's preference, but it's not really in their control. So pretty much we're almost there now. Not that anything would go wrong, mate, but thoughts of Sir Martin Broughton being the backup bid as such if, any snags were hit with Bowley, which I think seems unlikely, but, no issues with Broughton being the backup bid rather than Ratcliffe?
I mean, I don't want it to be Broughton. Let's make that very clear. Do I think he should be backup over Ratcliffe? Probably not. But at the same time, I'm like, I understand Rain's perspective. Like, Roman Abramovich has so far at least stayed loyal to Rain, who he initially, handed over the responsibilities of taking care of this takeover, right, of this sale. So he stuck loyal by them. And then for Jim Ratcliffe to basically try to go over their heads almost with his whole bid, I understand why Rain wouldn't entertain that, essentially. Totally understand. Not only did he miss the deadline, when he did finally turn up with his offer, he didn't send it to Rain. So sure, if Roman was like, actually, I like Jim Ratcliffe, I'm going to, overrule Rain here. Sure, but that clearly didn't work out for Jim Ratcliffe. So then I totally understand it from Rain's perspective. Ratcliffe is a weird one for me because I can't take him seriously. I just cannot. And I don't want anyone to be our owner that doesn't seem to be particularly sure whether he wants to be the owner. Otherwise, why would he have been so late? And was it like a fancy move to going over the head of Rain and trying to go directly to Chelsea, maybe Roman? If you think it's a good idea, fair enough, but it didn't work. So can it be a good idea? So from that perspective, I'm like, yeah, but I would even prefer Pagliuca to Broughton, if I'm honest. But obviously the problem with Pagliuca is that Rain seemed to have not been particularly convinced by the ideas, number one, for the stadium, and number two, for what he's going to do with his majority shares in Atalanta. So
Yeah, no, to be honest, mate, I think there's been enough hiccups in this process now that I think hopefully it should be, even by Chelsea.
And Ratcliffe, by the way, same issue with Nice. So
yeah, exactly. Hopefully it'll be pretty much plain sailing to the end now. But with Chelsea and stuff, you just never know. But that brings me on to the next point then. I just wanted to get your thoughts on as well. That according to Mark Kleiman at Sky, again, he's actually been pretty spot on as well throughout this whole process. Advisors to Roman Abramovich are discussing with Todd Bowley's group about quote unquote anti-Glazer clauses being set, including agreeing a strict limit on the debt they could take on, paying dividends and taking out management fees. The anti-Glazer clauses would be barring new owners from paying dividends or management fees until 2032, so for 10 years, prohibiting the sale of any shares for 10 years, and agreeing to strict limits on the level of debt that they could take on. I mean, obviously, the business language can be quite confusing if you're not like sort of not up to speed for it. But I think, kind of in basic terms, it pretty much means that the owners wouldn't be able to take, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, wouldn't be able to take money out of the club to service any of their own kind of personal debts within their other businesses as such. I mean, this is a good thing, right? But I mean, sure, how is this kind of going to be enforced?
Well, I guess they just have to sign an agreement, and you're contractually obliged to stick by it. And then if you break that contract, you can be sued, I suppose. That's probably how it's going to be monitored, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, this, in my opinion, this mostly goes for Clear Lake, if I'm honest, because obviously there's a little bit of worry what happens when you have a private equity firm own 60%, which they have reportedly gone to. So it's mostly for them. And yeah, it's a good thing. Like, obviously, a private equity firm has their money from a lot of investors that put their money into the private equity firm, and then the private equity firm basically puts it into other places to basically make their investors money, essentially. So the interesting part is that Clear Lake seem to have agreed to this, because it's actually quite rare. As far like, I've done a bit of research. I've spoken to, for example, VJ, who's obviously who did business and works in business. And the way he explained it to me is, if anything, surprising that they agreed to, or are apparently agreeing to it. But the fact that they are, it's not really a good thing. It's maybe a bit surprising that they are, but if they are, that can only lead to, well, them being forced to have good intentions as such. Because you can still, and I've discussed this on my streams and stuff, I've made this point a few times, but there is ways of making money. There's one way of making money by, say, sell Lukaku, and then you have so and so much money. If you don't spend it on other things, then you have that money. You win the league, you get so and so much money. You win, I don't know, well, we don't need to win anything. You're in the Premier League, you get so and so much money through TV rights and everything, right? So you can take money out that way, but the probably better and more almost risk-free and almost smarter in terms of business, in terms of Chelsea, and also business for investors, way to do it is just invest in the club, make sure we're successful, make sure we increase our brand, grow our brand as with sponsors, with potentially new stadium over the years, just investing into the squad in the right way so we can hopefully challenge for the Premier League again, challenge for the Champions League again, and fight for these things that will grow our global exposure. Therefore, that will grow the opportunities in terms of what kind of sponsors we can attract. And then therefore, if either Bowley or all of them or just Clearlake wanted to sell their shares in 10, 15, whatever amount of years, then they could sell it for significantly more than they bought it for now. And that's a significant, revenue made, right? But it's just a positive that we make sure that they do it that way rather than whenever they need to sort something because they're a private equity firm, they use money Chelsea generates to sort it for them. And we kind of make sure that they can't do that. Jester made a point in a comment earlier. How do we know whether that part is true? We just learned that all the reports on what Roman apparently was or was not doing were wrong. So how do we know that this is true? It's a fair point. We don't know. Yeah. We don't know for sure. But until we're told otherwise, until we were told otherwise by Roman, we didn't know whether it was true or not. And until that point, we have to kind of go by it. There's also no real proof that what Roman said is actually going to be true and that he's going to stick by that word. He might say that now. We don't know for sure whether he's going to go back on that word in a few weeks, months, years. We don't know for sure. It's hopefully not going to affect Chelsea at all. But whether he's actually going to give this money to charity or not, right now, no one knows for sure. The only thing, and I have never asked anybody this, and I wanted to hear your thoughts. The whole thing that we're forcing any of their owners, Clearlake, Bowley, whatever, that they cannot sell any of their shares for 10 years. I do, though, hope that there is some sort of clauses in there. Because what if they are really bad owners? And we kind of want to get rid of them within the next 10 years. Obviously, we all hope that's not the case. But theoretically, that could be the case. And then if they are somehow legally binded to not go anywhere until 2032, I hope there is some sort of clauses that say if you don't do this or if you do this wrong or whatever, then you will be forced to sell your shares, or then this clause gets lifted, or what, I don't know, anything. I just hope there is, I hope this 10 years thing can't turn into a negative for us as well. That's the only minor concern I have for this, if I'm honest.
Well, it's a good point, mate, because look, we're all excited about Bowley coming in, kind of standout candidate, etc. Says all the right things. It all looks great on paper, etc. But having said that, mate, you are spot on. Until Bowley is through the door and starts running the club and we see how it goes, season 2 seasons in, we're sort of seeing how he operates, how it works. Look, we all hope it's great, but there's no guarantees that it's going to be amazing. And, we might not like how he does things. There's always that potential risk with someone new coming in. We might not like it. We might hate it. He might use the club in a completely different way to how he said in his pitch to get the club in the first place. But in regards to the 10 years thing, even if it does work out well, he may just decide that he might not want it for 10 years. To sign into something for 10 years is a long amount of time. So I would like to think that for reasons, whether he was turned out to be a crap owner or for personal reasons wanting to move on within 10 years, there would be a way out of that. Because I think, with all contracts, I know they're technically...
Do you think personal reasons? Because I think this is supposed to exactly prohibit that they're not, if they don't fancy anymore, that's their problem. You made a commitment, then they have to stick by that commitment. And it depends on, say he feels like after 6-7 years, now I can't really be bothered with this anymore. And he would have to break contract. That probably costs him money. So he would be better served to continue it for those 3-4 years that he has remaining, and then maybe sell it. But it's still in his best interest by that point to grow the brand as much as he can. So then when he can sell it in 2032, or any part of the consortium can sell their shares in 2032, that they can sell it for profit. Because if they try to sell it before, they're not allowed, at least reportedly. So I don't think that there'll be clauses for if they just don't fancy it anymore, if I'm honest. But
no, but again, to your back to your original point, though, if it turns out not good and the fans don't like him and he runs the club in a way that is not acceptable in like from the fans' point of view, then it's a very it's a very legitimate point. Like I don't really know what the answer is to that. I mean, obviously, until we get there, or were we to get there, I guess it's hard to tell. But I mean, if there was enough backlash from the fans, for example,
I would just hope that Chelsea, because while Rain is obviously mainly in charge of this, and Roman, who is selling the club and can't even keep the money, as much as he has clearly cares for the club, there's maybe no guarantee that they would make sure that we're okay with that 10-year thing. But Chelsea itself also is part of the decision makers here, and obviously, you could say maybe Bruce Buck, Marino Groskaya, all these people, they maybe don't care in the long term either. But, I would expect that they have thought of that possibility and that they make sure that it isn't going to, tear the club into pieces if that was to be the case. Like, I would hope that they have thought of that and have created some sort of safety net for if that were to happen. I hope. And I'm gonna be of the opinion that they have done this, because why shouldn't I give them the benefit of the doubt? Because what logic would there be behind that and like not making sure of that? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, for sure, man. I think like these clauses can only be a good thing. I think Roman's not going to do anything within this process that he feels isn't the best for Chelsea Football Club. So if he feels that this is the best and this is the best guy and this is the way forward for the club to make sure it's in the safest possible hands to continue to grow and have success, then I think we have to trust him on that, given what he's done for the club in the last 20 years. I think it's only fair that we kind of take his word for it. But yeah, it looks like, just to round out on that, it looks like finally we're getting pretty close to the end of this saga. Should be done. Well, agreement should be signed maybe in the next week or so, a couple of weeks needed to sort everything out.
Report some sort of agreement might even be signed today. Not necessarily an already legally binding agreement, but some sort of agreement that's talked about.
So that's interesting. So it's definitely moving in the right direction. It is going to be Bowley. And it'll just be nice not to have to talk about who's going to own Chelsea for anymore.
Instead, talk about who we're going to sign. Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah, so we can talk about who we're going to sign instead. But yeah, that's just a quick roundup on obviously all things ownership. That is coming to an end. But mate, back to matters on the pitch. Last two games have been shit. If I'm being perfectly honest, it's been terrible. I went all the way to Goodison.
Both as well.
Mate, I went all the way to Goodison on Sunday, and it was an absolute joke. Honestly,
you went all the way to Manchester on Thursday.
Yeah, it was an absolute disgrace, mate. Honestly, I was fuming. I'm still feeling pretty tired from it now. But
I reckon maybe you just shouldn't go tomorrow. I know you're going, but maybe you shouldn't.
Mate, I'll go tomorrow. Maybe I shouldn't go. Maybe I should just take the rest of the season off.
If tomorrow don't work out, I think you need to give back that FA Cup final ticket, because that's not working out.
Maybe I've got a bit of a curse on me. Now, hopefully tomorrow we should win, but. Back to matters on the pitch, mate. We're stuttering at the moment. It seems to be, for me, mate, I've mentioned it on the channel before, like Chelsea in recent years seem to go through a cycle where start the season really well, tend to be top or in and around the title race at Christmas time, have a terrible December period, pick things back up again sort of January, February, March, and then tail off again, and then with awful form at the end of the season, and then face a scrap to finish in the top four. And it seems to be a rinse and repeat cycle. Are you worried, mate, that potentially, I know we've got 4 games left. We've got 3 of them at Stamford Bridge, 1 away game remaining with a trip to Leeds.
Which for us is probably a bad thing.
Yeah, I think it is, because we're much better away from home this season.
Except that fucking Goodison.
Yeah,
because it's basically
we never
Bridge
win there.
In terms of size of pitch.
Mate, it's tiny. I've never been there before. I didn't realise how small it was. It's really small. Like you're literally right on the pitch.
In terms of the pitch.
Yeah, no, it does. It does feel that way. Obviously, it might not be, but it does feel that way. But mate, are you worried that I'm not saying they're going to miss out on the top 4, but there's a distinct possibility that obviously Arsenal would finish ahead of us, which I think could be very likely, which would be terrible. Are you worried for our top 4 status this season? I know that might seem a bit extreme, but we are stumbling along. Literally, last-minute winner against West Ham, should have beaten Man United, lost to Everton. Wolves are another tough team.
Brentford, fucking hell, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Are you concerned?
I know this is a bit of a cop-out answer now, but I'll say if we drop points again tomorrow, yes.
Yeah.
If not, no. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, because like I think as much as we should have beaten Everton, and as much as I still believe that Tuchel got frankly outcoached, pun not intended, by Frank Lampard, we were still playing a team that were like, it doesn't really get much more must win for any team than that game was for Everton, right? So that game might always have been difficult. Also, considering we're always bad at Goodison anyway, even when they have nothing to play for. Do you know what I mean? So maybe with that in mind, and the same at Old Trafford, right? Maybe with that in mind, it's like, as much as it's frustrating and disappointing, maybe it's not necessarily a sign that we're always shit. Maybe these games were just, even if our form was better, were always going to be difficult games. But if we can't beat Wolves at home, although we haven't beaten Wolves in a while either, I will say. I think the last time we beat Wolves was the day we secured top 4 in Lampard's season. I think that was the last time we won any game against Wolves when it's home or away. So that's a problem in and of itself, I will say. But if we drop points again tomorrow, I might well be worried about it. But if we do win, I think we're still okay. Like, we still have a game in hand over Arsenal, I'm pretty sure. And with 3 points in hand, right? So I think we'll be okay. But if this continues tomorrow, I think then it becomes a serious problem, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I mean, I think the last 2 games against Wolves have been 0-0 in both of them. Tuchel's first game in charge was 0-0 at the Bridge. We went to Molineux earlier in the season, 0-0. Who knows if it could be another 0-0. I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game, but just something in the chat here.
Was it on Lampard still when we drew 1-1 away?
Could have been. Last season. Yeah, last season it would have been. Yeah, last season we didn't win there.
Didn't Giroud go in that? I reckon Giroud.
Yeah, I don't think we've beaten them for the last 4.
No, we definitely haven't beaten them. No, but I know it was 1-1 away once.
And Texas Blue in the chat was saying Wolves on a 3-game losing streak. So who else do you want to face on the back of 3 losses in a row? No better place to come than Stamford Bridge potentially. So again, I hope we can do it, but. Mate, just in general, the form and we had a decent March. The form really has been, it's not been good.
Sorry, I wanted to say something about that actually, because I think we need to, if we stop our January slump or our winter slump, shall we call it?
Yeah.
I think that automatically stops our spring slump. Because I think the reason we have to spring slump is because we ruined it all in winter, and therefore there's less to fight for, and therefore we're worse now, if that makes sense. Because people always say, "Oh, Liverpool, Man City, they don't, drop points, they don't drop intensity," and I'm like, yeah, but it's easier not to drop intensity if you're in the title fight, because then you're always up for it, right? While we are way too far away from the title, sure, we now might be dragged into the top 4 race, which is why I think we'll start playing better again, which is what happens every year. Like, we're up there, then we bottled the title race, then we're in a bit of no man's land for a while, then that no man's land, us not turning up properly, drags us into a top 4 race, and then we realize, oh shit, we need to get our crap together, and then we sort it out a bit and make top 4. That's usually, I feel like, what happens. Sure, on the Conte second season, we finished 5th because we lost fucking 3-0 at Newcastle in the last day, which is still mental. And obviously that Jose season when he was sacked and then we finished 10th in the end. But in general, we'll still always make the top 4. But I think if we ever get to a point where we finally stop our January slump, whether that's explained by injuries, whether that's explained by too many games, whatever it's explained by, if we get to a point where we stop doing that, then I think we will also save ourselves from the slump that we have in like April sometimes. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because if we remain in the title fight, I believe that the intensity and the momentum to some extent, because if you don't have a slump, you keep momentum going.
Yeah.
But just that the fact that you're fighting for a title will be so big and will make sure you're at the highest intensity week in, week out. But obviously, if you're not in the title fight, I understand that can drop a bit easier, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I get your point, but we've got a cup final coming up. We should be we want to have momentum to take into that cup final. You want to go into the final on good form. You don't want to be heading into a cup final potentially on the back of like no wins in sort of 2, 3, 4 games, which it could potentially be. You want to take good form into that. Players for me they're on holiday. We got players that are signed for other clubs already. Are they really that asked how they do for the rest of the season? Probably not. No. As much as they will maintain professionalism, you're not 100% in it because you're moving. So you're not really that bothered. But you'd think, for the rest of the lads, you've got an FA Cup final to play for. A position, you're playing for positions in the lineup for a big cup final. you expect a bit more. You really do. Well, I personally, I don't know if it's too much to ask, but last thing before we kind of get a bit more into the game, are you concerned about the mentality within the group? Like, because it's not just Tuchel that's questioned it. We've had it questioned by Sarri, Jose's questioned it, Conte's questioned it in the past, even Frank Lampard's questioned it as well. Do you think there's a mentality issue at Chelsea?
If there is, then it stems from someone other than the players, though, because the players are not the same. How many players are still the same that Jose had?
Not
Aspi's
many.
the only one, I'm pretty sure, right? Even Conte's team, Alonso, Aspi, and Kante are the only ones.
Yeah.
I think everybody else is also gone. Obviously, Rudiger signed, but Conte's title-winning team, Rudiger wasn't part of that either, right? So I think even to Conte's team, there's only 3 teams, right? 3 players, sorry. So can it come from the players? But it also can't come from the manager because we've had all the different managers. So where does it come from? If it is real, is it the staff in the background? Could it be? I don't know. Like I'm like, it feels a bit silly to start blaming like the medical staff, physios, and the random behind the scenes coaches and the kit man. It seems a bit strange to blame that for it. To blame them for it. Sorry, that that seems a bit outrageous to do that. But at the same time, is it the higher ups? Is it like the Marinas and the Czechs and Czech hasn't been here forever either, but the Marinas, the Bruce Bucks, is it them? I don't know. I mean, they aren't at training. I mean, they are at the games, but they don't have any control over what happens on the pitch. So I don't know if like it feels like there is a mentality problem, 1,000,000%. But how can you explain that? Because, like I say, it's a completely different set of players. And then when you look at the players individually, right? Think about it. Who do you think could have mentality problems? Does Mendy seem like he would?
No.
Does Thiago Silva seem like he would? No. Does Aspi seem like he would? No. Even Rudiger seems like he wouldn't. Okay, now that he's leaving, maybe it's a bit different, but that's the first time, right? We've had that problem since he's been here every year, so you can't just say this is only now, right? Christensen, maybe. Fair enough. Christensen maybe has a mentality problem, 100%. Chalobah, we don't know for long enough, but does he play enough for that to cause a problem? I would say no. Does Reece James have that problem? I would say no. Alonso, yeah, very well might be. But then again, whenever it matters, Alonso usually has a tendency to turn up, if anything.
Yeah.
Like he is a bad footballer, and his average performances are quite bad, but he does turn up every now and again, and usually he turns up the more it matters. So for him, it's less a mentality problem, I would say. For him, it's just a not being very good problem. And that's a problem that Chelsea have caused, if that makes sense. Now, in midfield, Kante, yes, to some extent, because I don't think he's as a lot of top athletes are as, maybe I'm doing him a disservice here, but I feel like he's not as competitive, not as win-driven. Personally, again, could be wrong, but I feel like it could be just with the way he seems, right? A bit shy, always nice. Doesn't seem like the guy that's like, I will kick your heads off if we don't win type thing. Do you know what I mean? Georgie, more so. Georgie always seems devastated when we don't win and seems gassed when we do win, no matter how deserved or undeserved it is. Cover, I don't think will have mentality issues. And then we get to where it becomes a bit more of an issue. I mean, Lukaku has had a mentality issue since the day he stepped in the door. Seemingly, I mean, we didn't know it at the time, but certainly the latest that he gave that interview, clearly some mentality issues. How big they are, everyone has their own opinion on it. But no one can say there's not some issue. Havertz, on form, off form. Why is that? I don't know. Timo Werner, a bit more like Alonso, if I'm honest. Pulisic doesn't really get chances, but I wouldn't be surprised by a bit of a mentality issue, if I'm honest, as much as some people in this chat might not be a fan of me saying that. Mason Mount, does he seem like he'll have a mentality issue?
No, I don't think so.
Ruben, maybe, but does he play enough for that to cause that? I would say no. So then where does it come from? Like, sorry that I dragged this question out so long.
That's all right.
If you deep it and actually look at every individual of the squad, it doesn't seem like there would be. There's maybe 3 or 4, but maybe 5, right? But even then, you should have way more that it shouldn't affect. So if that's the situation, just don't play those 5, right? So if that's an obvious thing to Tuchel, and it seems to not be, otherwise he would drop them, right? So yeah, it feels like there is, but maybe it's just something. Coincidence is maybe the wrong word, but maybe it just happens every year, but it has different reasons every year, rather than it being like a particular one problem that reoccurs every season, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying, but for me, I think also potentially that I think maybe the squad or the group of players, or maybe individually and maybe as a collective as well, that when there's nothing to play for anymore in regards to the league. I know in the like, we've got a cup final, etc. But when there's not much to play for in the league, I think they find it hard to get themselves up for it. Which I don't know what the answer is for that, but there's suggestions to show that we do find it difficult to get up for games when there's not really anything riding on it.
Well,
I know.
Wouldn't you say that every team has that though?
Yes, yeah, I would agree.
Because look at Liverpool last season. If they were in a title fight somehow, even though with their injuries, I think they probably wouldn't have dropped off that much. But because when the injuries really started hitting them, they were already miles gone. They had to really, at the end of the season, realize, flipping out, we're almost throwing everything away here. Like, if they don't, like, Alisson's header gets them top 4 last season. Now they're in the Champions League final. Without that header, they can't be here, right? Because they wouldn't have even qualified for the Champions League, which is mental to think about. Flipping Alisson 97th minute header against West Brom. Do you know what I mean? But had they not been under that pressure of we need this win to get top 4, would they have won that game from that position? Probably not. So I feel like, and Arsenal, like, they don't sometimes figure it out by the end, or Tottenham. But you see them, okay, they drop some points, then they realize, oh shit, we're in the mud. We need to figure ourselves out. Then they win a few games again. Then the pressure drops a bit again, and then they bottle it again. But I feel like that happens for almost every club. That's why the thing that you say kind of in your head is when you towards the end of the season play against teams that have nothing to play for, that should make it easier. That's kind of what I was hinting at in terms of us playing Everton last week.
Yeah.
That obviously they had everything to play for. So even if they're, as footballers, worse than we are, you know too well, if you just try extra bit harder, like, you're going to compensate for your lack of ability to some extent. I mean, QNTV says they still finished above us, and they did, because we didn't have that quite the same pressure, because by the end, we were almost like, maybe a little bit in like, oh, hopefully we don't throw it away. I mean, we needed luck. I will say, we needed luck on the last day because we lost to Villa. If Leicester didn't beat Spurs, we would have not made top 4. Obviously, but also we had the Champions League final, and had we won that anyway, we would have still been in the Champions League, obviously. So we had that kind of safety net almost, although it's a very risky safety net. But hey, we did it in 2012. So, so I feel like every club suffers from that a little bit. But the thing that we suffer from more than most is being very good and then having a few months during winter usually. Oh, Spurs beat Leicester. Sorry, was it that way around? Sorry. But usually we are just, we just throw it away in winter. This year, I think it's mostly down to injuries, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Like, if we didn't have Chilly's injury, and then Chilly's injury meaning that Reece James had to play even more in that very game that he got injured in, than playing left wing back because Chilly was injured. If those things don't happen, I'm not saying we win the league, but we definitely have top 3 secured by now, if that makes sense.
I'd agree with that. But I just think, particularly last thing on this, with this group of players, I think it's very much, and Chelsea as a club in general, I think if they're not constantly winning, I think it's hard to. I think they find it hard to get motivated. You know, I think you need that constant success to keep this group going. And you know, when we're not winning trophies, I think the heads drop very quickly, and you soon have big problems. And we've seen that in the past. As long as we can keep winning, picking up a trophy each season, then I think we can keep the players happy, the mentality, okay. But I think as soon as you stop winning, particularly at Chelsea, I think the head seemed to drop so quickly. But I mean, hopefully that's something that we can maybe sort out, and it could again go down to recruitment. Make sure you get the right characters through the building as well. Doesn't matter how talented you want the best players, but if they're not the right character or the right fit to be in and around the place on a daily basis, that's important as well. I'm not saying any of the players you've got now are like bad to have around, but you've got to make sure the makeup of the squad is right as well in terms of characters and personalities, and I think that also massively helps. But in terms moving on to the presser, then I mean, just a bit more news about the game before we get into our lineup. Some interesting quotes from Tuchel, to say the least. I think for me, it's kind of the first time that maybe in public that he's kind of sending perhaps indirect shots to those above. I mean, I'm just going to bring it up on the screen now, just to get a couple of thoughts from you, mate. Where are we? This one here. First of all, he was saying the top 2 teams bring quality from outside. You need to be very good in scouting, recruiting, and decision-making to improve the squad. Now, it depends how you want to look at this. It could be him just stating the obvious, or just saying what is required. Or do you think that's him having...
I mean, I haven't fully watched it yet, and I'm not a million % sure from this quote, because for me, rather than this being a dig at the people that are currently above him, I thought this is more like almost seemed like a plead to the new owners, like, make sure we have this if you want us to. Like, that's what it seemed to me more than anything else, if I'm honest. But again, I haven't seen it yet, so maybe if I watch it myself, then I'll change my mind on that, if that makes sense. But and also the whole like, sometimes it happens in football that you don't get the players you want type thing. Price in our group chat took it as digs at the ball. Again, I didn't take it as that personally. Like, it could well be meant that way, but Tuchel will not all of a sudden, while we're sanctioned, have nothing better to do than criticize the board for our signings. Like, he's not Conte. He's not going to cry about lack of signings in May. Like, that would be silly. Like, especially after he just got outcoached by Lampard, that would be a ridiculous move to make, in my opinion. And then, like, if you always complain about it, almost fair. But to now start complaining, that's why I don't see it as a complaint. I think it's more like, well, at PSG, he didn't get the players he wanted. He wanted a centre-back. They gave him Danilo Pereira from Porto, who's a centre-mid. And then, out of spite, he apparently started to play him centre-back anyway, because that's what he wanted. Do you know what I mean? And at Dortmund, the reason why he fell out with people is because they sold Lewandowski and didn't give him a replacement, essentially. Which, fucking fair play. Or was it they sold Aubameyang and didn't get him a replacement?
Yeah,
whatever it was.
Aubameyang,
Yeah. Fucking fair play. Like, I'd be annoyed too. So, like, and at the same time, it's like, it's also being realistic as a football manager. Even if you're Pep Guardiola, even if you're Jurgen Klopp wanted Timo Werner, didn't get him. Pep Guardiola wanted Jorginho, didn't get him. Pep Guardiola wanted Harry Kane last summer, didn't get him. Like, also Man City and Liverpool don't get every signing they want. Like, it's just a statement. That's a realistic statement from a manager to say you're not going to get every player that you want. Sometimes maybe the players don't want to join you. Sometimes maybe the other club just refuses to sell. How long did we refuse to sell Hazard to Real Madrid for? It's like we just said no. Then what can Madrid do about it? Nothing. If we say no, we say no. If someone says no to us, they say no to us. What are we going to do?
No, mate, I'd agree with that. I don't take it as a shot at the board. You could look at it as indirectly, speaking to them potentially. But I think I agree with you, mate, in terms of kind of just maybe letting the owners in waiting know that, guys, this is what we need to do. If we're going to close the gap, this needs to happen. And if this doesn't happen, then I'm not going to be happy about it. So I think it's obvious, though. We know this. Like, as fans, we know this. I'm sure Tuchel knows that. I'm sure maybe people in the club are aware of this as well, that we've got to improve the scouting, the recruiting, and the decision-making. The way we identify players, like how we bring them in, how much we pay for them. Not just going for big names, going for maybe more under the radar things. This is all stuff that we need to be doing. I know this is just a quick question on this. Do you have confidence that once Bowley's through the door, that we will see a change or maybe as soon as this summer, hopefully? Do you think we'll see a change in our recruitment process and our scouting? Because if we're being honest, mate, it's been like a scattergun approach at best over the last few years. It's very much just buying players because they've done well somewhere else without actually giving much thought, if any, to how they're going to fit into the system.
See, yeah, I don't know. I mean, clearly the scouting won't improve because, like, scouts take at least a few months to bring their, like, even if you employ new scouts, it will take a few months to reap those benefits, right? So for this summer, that's too late. Now, the decision-making, that could certainly improve for sure. At the same time, it seems like even after the takeover, the first guy we're going to be trying to sign is Koundé, who we were trying to sign last year as well. But I would say Koundé does fit kind of everything that we need, because he can play in the back four. He can play in the back three, because he's kind of this mix of right back and centre back anyway. So I kind of ideal for that right centre back spot in the back three. But he can also play right back, so he provides cover for behind someone like Reece James until we potentially sign Livramento next summer, although he's done his ACL in now, so let's see about that. There has also been reports now that we've been scouting Bremer, the centre back from Torino. Yeah, exactly. He plays left centre back in the back three, so that seems like it at least makes sense to kind of would he work in our team if he plays in the same system at least. So there's some sort of logic to that. Also, the Pau Torres one, we try to play it out from the back all the time. So which players should you maybe sign? Players that are good with the ball at their feet. What's Pau Torres' probably best trait as a centre back is being good with the ball at his feet. So those signings, in general, make sense. Now, there will be background checks of like their personalities, their families, their friends, their habits in terms of how well do they look after themselves, how hard do they train, how good is their diet? Like, are they just in shape because they have great metabolism, or are they in great shape because they really look after themselves really well? Like, it's not the same being Eden Hazard and being Thiago Silva. They clearly look after themselves in very different ways. Sure, Thiago Silva is forced into that by his age now, but apparently, at least reportedly, he's always been like that. So those things, obviously, us as fans will never know, and that's what scouts and the people in behind the scenes are supposed to look at and supposed to make the correct decisions on. But I will also say one thing, and I know it's easy to always blame people and have a go at things. Sometimes signings just don't work out. Like, that happens.
Yeah.
A signing can be a good signing when you make it, and then it just doesn't work. Like, that happens. Like, that happens to every club. Like, Liverpool signed Karius. How did that go for them? Do you know what I mean? Like, it happens. They signed Sturridge. I mean, he was useful for them for a while, but not forever.
It does happen, but what I would say is, though, mate, it happens to us way too often.
Yeah, no, I do agree. I'm not saying I disagree. I'm just saying
that's of course it happens to everyone, but I think the two teams that I hate, referring to City and Liverpool so often, but the two teams that we're trying to chase down to compete for the Premier League, like, when was the last time they got a big signing wrong as such? You look at the signings that they've made. When was the last time that was a flop?
Benjamin Mendy went really wrong.
Yeah, but was he it wasn't great, but you know what I mean in terms of like the attacking positions, particularly. You look at the attacking.
Jack Grealish just had a bad season, but obviously that could still come good.
Yeah, I mean, I think first season with City, it's always difficult for players. Mahrez wasn't very good in his first year. Sterling struggled as well first year at City. It happens. I think next season will be obviously different on that. But these players generally, they sign them. They've obviously looked at them properly, done the checks, they fit into the system and they're ready to go. I think for me, we very much just buy players without really giving the consideration to whether they're going to fit the system or whether it's right for the club. So that does definitely need to change if we're going to close that gap.
We've discussed this before, obviously, but part of that problem is that we keep changing our managers. It's easier not to make those mistakes if you have the same manager every time.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
Zappacosta, like, people don't like him, but as a backup right wing back, there's probably worse players to have than Zappacosta.
Yeah, of course.
But then we unfortunately changed from who signed him? Conte, right? Then
Conte signing, yeah.
Yeah, then we changed to Sarri, who at least was Italian, but he didn't play a right wing back. So that made Zappacosta not useful particularly. Then we get Lampard in, who also didn't use wing backs most of the time, right? So that also makes Zappacosta pointless. And then by the time we went back to wing backs, so Zappacosta might have had some sort of use in Tuchel's system, he was gone.
Yeah,
that's just one example. Or we signed Barkley again. Always a bad signing, but we signed him under
Conte, because I remember the press conference that Conte was pissed that we signed him.
Yeah, see, Barkley under Conte made never any sense. But at least under Sarri, he bought like an attacking 8, he can play that. So there is some sort of logic behind that, even if he's not good enough, but at least he fits that. But as soon as Tuchel is in, it doesn't fit it at all anymore because the position doesn't exist anymore. So once we stop changing managers every 2 years, that will automatically fix half that problem, even if we don't make the structure better. As long as we don't sack managers, sometimes we need to sack managers. Like, it was good that we sacked Lampard. It was good that we sacked Conte. Obviously, Sarri in the end left anyway. So I'm not sure to this day whether if Sarri would have stayed, whether it would have been better had Sarri been given another season or not. We will never know for sure. Now, how we played in the Lampard, especially at the start of the season, that looks like Sarri all over. So judging by that, we probably would have gotten even better at doing that rather than trying to learn something different again. So who knows, right? I think Sarri is a much better manager than Lampard. Some fans might have some sort of agreement with that. I think that's a bit silly considering Lampard's record so far. I mean, he's been okay at Derby, but okay is the top of it. He did lose the playoff final, and he lost every final he played with us as well. He lost the Super Cup, he lost the FA Cup final. Like, it's not got a good record. I can't lie.
No, he doesn't. But yeah, I think that's spot on as well. That you look at Pep Guardiola. I think since he's been at Man City, signed 36 players. It makes a difference.
Mental, by the way.
Being at a club for a long period of time will help you shape your squad, because then that manager brings in the exact players he wants rather than inheriting other managers' players and trying to make
City
it work.
were even more extreme, weren't they?
Yeah.
They knew they were getting Pep Guardiola, and already in the years leading up to Pep Guardiola, they signed players that would work for Pep Guardiola.
Yeah, exactly.
That's even another step further of planning and structure and everything. Like, that's even more insane. Do you know what I mean?
That just lends more credence to the fact that we need to back Tuchel, give him what he wants, and let him be here for a number of years. Even if things don't go so well, just let him be here. Let him bring in the players he wants, and then we can hopefully build something.
But with the players he wants, he will. Well, to some extent, he wanted Lukaku. I still think people like Pice, as much as I love Pice, somehow, I don't know, over defend Tuchel on certain topics. Like, he was happy with Lukaku, and he hasn't found a way to make it work. That's on Lukaku. That's also on Tuchel, and that's also on the people that decided, Lukaku. But Tuchel didn't say no to Lukaku. If he didn't want him and he didn't think he would fit the system, then he should have said no. Do you know what I mean? I'm pretty sure the club would have said, but man, we really want to spend 100 million. Come on, let us buy him, please. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think they would have said, you don't want him? But yeah, at the same, in general, the players that he signs is unlikely to cause problems in the background, because if he gets on with them, if he likes them, if they play well, if he likes them, that means they will get minutes. And if they get minutes, it will cause less problems. So if you have players that work for your manager, that your manager likes and like your manager, that again, like you say, that also means that it should cause less problems in the long term.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think the biggest thing for us to make sure we keep a manager for a number of years now, we've got a new owner. Hopefully we can, the one thing that he probably would change is keeping a manager for a longer period of time, providing they are good enough, which Tuchel certainly is. But mate, let's get into this team news then. Guys, before we get into the team, make sure you smash a like on the video, and please do subscribe to the channel if you're tuning in now and you haven't subscribed already. It would really help me out. Mate, we've got a few injury problems heading into this one. Kante, supposedly it was a minor knock before Everton, but as with always with Kante, it seems to be a bit worse than is ever, it's ever said. And this game's too soon for him. No Jorginho either. Callum Hudson-Odoi was pictured back in training, but he's still not ready. And obviously Ben Chilwell is the only long-term absentee remaining. So a few injuries to contend with there. Obviously, we'll start in goal, mate. First things first, are you very much of the opinion that we're going to stick with the 3-4-3? I think with Kante and Jorginho out, we don't even have enough midfield options to even entertain a 3 anyway.
Probably true. I mean, we could do Ruben as a 6 and then Cover and Mount as the 8, but then
I don't like Ruben as a 6.
Yeah, no. First of all, neither do I. I agree. And then also, our only subs option would be Ross Barkley. But at the same time, if we play a midfield 2 of Ruben and Cover in this formation, we also don't have any subs option. So I guess that problem occurs regardless of the formation, I suppose. But yeah, I don't know. Like, if I'm honest, I maybe wouldn't stick to it because I just don't care anymore. Just go all out. The one thing we can't do is attack, so just fucking attack. But, if we're remaining some sort of realistic, then, especially against Wolves, obviously play a back 3 themselves, right?
Yeah.
Unless they've changed that and I've been totally unaware. But I'm pretty sure they still do. Then, yeah. And I would also agree with Mendy.
Yeah, Mendy in goal. That's obvious. Obviously, moving to the back 3, we would presume that Rudiger and Thiago Silva will be 2 of those positions. I mean, if you would disagree, then do say. Who do you think takes the last position then? Because we've seen Aspie play the last 2 games there at United, and obviously he had a poor game at Everton, giving the goal away. Mate, who goes in that right centre back spot? Because essentially it's between Aspie, Christensen, and Chalobah. Chalobah not played very much at all recently. Obviously played against Arsenal because Christensen had his stomach cramps in the warm up. But we've seen Aspie, Silva, Rudiger for the last 2 games. Do you think could we see that for a 3rd game in a row, or does that right centre back slot need to be changed?
I can't decide between Chalobah and Aspie. I want to say Chalobah because I'm like, Well, he's the one that's staying, right? For sure. We don't know if Aspie stays. So why not back that? And do I think there's much difference in level of performance between
No.
all those three? No. So then pick the one that's going to be definitely staying. That's my logic behind it. But maybe at the same time, maybe you need Aspie because, you never know. Rudiger has been going a bit mental. So maybe you need that Aspie next to him. I don't know. But I would take Chalobah if I was
Yeah,
supposed to pick one.
I was going to go Chalobah as well. I think Aspie had a poor game against Everton. He really did. He was just all over the place. It seemed like he was losing his temper, mistakes. I mean, it wasn't great. But yeah, I think I personally go Chalobah as well. Wing backs then. Reece James continues at right wing back for you. It's a great game against United. Not so good against Everton. He wasn't the only one. He seems to be pretty fit. Those issues seem to be, fingers crossed, behind him. Very much he continues at right wing back for you.
I mean, I would actually, what I would really like to do is play Reece James right centre back and play Ruben right wing back, because that seems to be how we attack the best, judging by Southampton and Real Madrid.
Yeah.
Although we also had him there against West Ham, where we only scored very late on, to be fair. But because we obviously have Jorginho and Kante unavailable, that isn't an option anymore. Meaning, yeah, James stays at right back, also right wing back. Sorry. Also, now we had a full week off, so now his fitness should be more comfortable to contend with a full 90 in that position. So
yeah. I mean, I think I was saying that's our first week off, I think, since like September potentially, where we've not had a game in the midweek.
Since the break in February. Obviously, everyone had the break, but
it's been a long time since we've not had a midweek game. Moving to left wing back. Obviously he's in the week. It's been reported, or the last week or so, that Marcos Alonso's priority is to return to Spain in the summer, although he'll remain respectful to Chelsea, which was the language used. Regardless of where he ends up in the summer, he's very much probably going to play this game, isn't he? We just don't have any other options. I guess the only other option would be to play Aspie there, and that probably isn't going to happen either.
I mean, like I said with my back four thing, if I'm honest, I'm just in my head, I'm like, just play Kennedy. Who cares? Do you know what I mean? But, again, remaining a bit more realistic, probably just got to pick Alonso, innit? Like, he was obviously really bad against Everton, but he was really good against United. So it's like, swings and roundabouts. That's what happens when you have the main guy injured and then you recall someone, but he's not really an option. And, well, Saul hasn't seen the light of day other than for some reason the last 10 minutes against Real Madrid either. So
he literally doesn't even play. You kind of forget he's here. So it'd be Alonso and James. Midfield. Well, to be honest, mate, midfield's normally a little bit of a decision to be made. There's no decisions really to be made here at all. Kante, Jorginho both out. So Kovacic returned from injury against Everton, playing a half. He looked a little bit off the pace, but that's to be expected when he'd been out for a couple of weeks. He should be fit to start this game. So I guess, mate, it's very much going to be him and Ruben. And Ruben, to be fair, I know you're a big fan of his. I like him as well. He was probably the standout performer against Everton. Do you like the look of that midfield too? We don't see it that much. Loftus-Cheek and Kovacic. Do you think that's got the makings of a decent partnership there?
Well, if I'm honest, actually no, because I want both of them to be kind of the more attacking of the two, but one of them can't, right? Because they can't both do it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise that leaves too many gaps in midfield. And that I don't want either of them to have to be the one that sits. I think it limits Kovacic when he has to do it, and I think it limits Ruben when he has to do it. So ideally, this is not my midfield, but hey, it's the only thing we have available. And I also hope we don't overdo it with Kova, because mind you, he came back. Sure, it wasn't long. He was only out for 2 weeks, but still, he came back, probably played more than he should have against Everton with that halftime injury for Jorginho, which Kovacic had to come on for. So maybe after and if the result allows it, after an hour or whatever, I don't know, drag Mason back into the midfield and take Kova off. Like, not that that's a sub I want to make, but I'd rather that than make Kovacic injured for the cup final. So
no, for sure, mate, for sure. Moving into the front three then. Mason Mount's played a lot of football recently. He seems to be playing 90 most weeks at the moment. Would you very much stick with him on that right-hand side? Do we think maybe Hakim Ziyech could get a go there, or do you think it's very much still Mount's position and Tuchel's just going to play him regardless?
See, no. In predicted 11, I think Tuchel is going to play him regardless. In my head, it's like, I want to give Ziyech a chance, if I'm honest. I think he deserves one. I think he hasn't had enough. But at the same time, do I think he deserves it more than Pulisic? No. And do I think Mount deserves to be dropped? Kind of no. Like, yeah, the last two against United and Everton weren't good. But before that, he was scoring and assisting every game for like 7 games in a row. So like you can't after 2 games say someone's shit, it needs to drop now. Like that's not how football works. Like, I mean, Mo Salah didn't score for like 2 months other than for the penalty spot. Did he get dropped? No. I'm not saying Mount is as good as Salah, obviously not. But still, I just think whenever Mount doesn't play, I sit there and I'm like, we missed Mount every time. So I want Ziyech to play, but I don't want him to play instead of Mount, if that makes sense. And I want Pulisic to play over Ziyech. So that's why Mount stays in there and Pulisic is on the other side for me.
Yeah, for sure, mate. I was going to say, I mean, I've been calling for Pulisic to start the last 2 games. I felt he should have started against United and I felt he should have started against Everton as well. Oh, I spelled that wrong. I felt he should have started against Everton as well. So, I mean, that's maybe one criticism for me of Tuchel is that he seems to be keeping faith with attackers that are contributing essentially fuck all for the last few games. Why Timo Werner keeps getting picked? I know recently he's done well, but the last couple of games he should never have been started, in my opinion. He seems to stick with, and even sticking with Kai Havertz. You know, we're fans of Kai Havertz.
Well, let's not pretend like Timo wasn't any good against West Ham either. No,
he wasn't great. But let's be honest. For me, I like Kai Havertz. I think he's got the potential to be a top player. But why is Tuchel showing blind faith in Havertz when, let's be honest, since his purple patch at I think for the month of March, pretty much for all of April, he's been absolutely awful. I'm sorry. That's how I see it. He's been dreadful. And how he played 90 minutes against Everton is beyond me. And then Tuchel's excuse about not putting Lukaku. Well, I know Lukaku's not been great, but he certainly would have been a better option to have potentially than Havertz in that Everton game. And his excuse for saying, "Oh, well, we only had 3 subs and I had to take Jorginho off," which I thought that was utter nonsense from Tuchel. I don't know what that's got to do with. And he had to use a sub to take a midfield player off. We've still got 2 other subs, so why did Havertz stay on the pitch? But I mean, Tuchel, for me, I think there's amounts of faith being shown in attacking players that, quite frankly, don't deserve it at the moment. So I'm glad that Pulisic will be in for me. Down the middle then, Kai Havertz or Romelu Lukaku? Tuchel was speaking about Lukaku in the presser today. Let me just find the quotes now. He was saying that I want him to be important. Right now, he is very important. There is no recruitment because it's simply not possible at the moment. We need to adapt all the time to what we and the players want. We signed a big player. He is a big player. He didn't come on as we had only 3 changes and we made an early change with Georgie. He trained very well. Maybe he starts tomorrow. We'll see. Lukaku start tomorrow for you? I know like he's not kind of he's not flavour of the month at the moment as such, and he's not playing well, but Kai Havertz can't play every game. And Havertz's form has been dreadful for the last 3, 4, 5 games. So, Lukaku tomorrow, do you think?
It's a weird one. I don't fully agree that Havertz was awful all of April. Definitely not as good. But I think part of that is, again, our switch in formation to the front two and Werner next to him all the time. Yeah. I believe that. But for Everton, I just cannot comprehend how he played. Now, number one, he plays well. He's played so much football. If that's the reason for him struggling, that's even another reason why he shouldn't have played. If it's just that he couldn't handle it, regardless. It took us, I mean, I don't know about in the stadium, but on TV, it took like 5 minutes to know Havertz is not going to get... At the same time, Havertz had a great chest and then layoff to Mount when Mount hit the left post and then the right post. That would have been actually a great assist by Havertz, but obviously because it didn't go in, no one cares, sees, or remembers. But he just seemed knackered. But now the problem I have now, if we played this game in midweek, I would 1,000,000% have said Lukaku. But because now we've had the week off, now I expect Havertz to be fresher again. So now I'm almost like, well, then I might as well keep playing Havertz, really. So that's why I'm not sure, because on the one hand, I feel like, well, we might as well give Lukaku a chance at some point, especially if we're not sure whether we're going to sell him or not. With apparently Inter signing Dybala, so they definitely don't have the money to. And
also, isn't
Dybala's contract running out, so he might be on.
Yeah, he's a free. Yeah, but also every time that Lukaku just sits on the bench being unused or only playing a few minutes, that transfer fee is going down and down and down by how much money we're going to get. But
I guess the lower the transfer fee is, as long as we accept it, the more likely it makes anyone trying to sign him.
Yeah. I mean, he plays
the rest of the season now, theoretically, and scored 1 or 2 goals every game, which Obviously, we would probably then not want to sell him. But if we would try to sell him, then we would command a much bigger fee, and then there's probably less clubs that would even, want to get involved with that, I guess. But yeah, if I'm honest, I can't decide. I think I'll just pick Havertz, just on the one hand, because it's like we've had Havertz, Werner, Mount every game. I'm like, if we change two of them, we don't, and it doesn't work or it does work, we don't know why it did work or why it didn't work. So I would start by changing just Pulisic, leaving Havertz. See if that makes a difference to our attack. If it doesn't, then you can still go to Lukaku and then play Lukaku and Pulisic and Mount. If that doesn't work, well, then we're screwed.
Let me quickly bring this up. Could we see a back four tomorrow, given Wolves are very like to play low block? We could, but for the reasons we gave, we don't really have the personnel available to us to potentially go the midfield three. Well, we could do it, but I don't know how good it would be. It would require Malang Sarr or Marcus Alonso to play left back and a back four, which is a good enough reason to never play a back four again this season, as far as I'm concerned. And it's definitely possible. And then this one here, Tuchel said possession won't work against Wolves. That makes me think Rom starts. Maybe.
I also thought of something. Our next game is Wednesday against Leeds.
Leeds away. And that's another one of those games like Everton where Leeds are battling for their life to stay in the division.
That is true. That part is true. But the way Leeds play, even on a Jesse Marsh now, that requires, in my opinion, high intensity striker.
So you'd rather have Havertz then?
So against Leeds, I would definitely rather have Havertz, if I'm honest. Just because of how they play, I think we need to match them to beat them in intensity and energy. So, yeah. You know what? I'll pick Lukaku tomorrow. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter who I pick. We'll just have to see who Tuchel picks anyway.
Let's go for Lukaku. Because I also think Lukaku could play a bit of a part against Leeds, because obviously play Leeds on Wednesday night, and then we've got the FA Cup final Saturday. So I don't know.
Yeah, when you look at it that way again, maybe Havertz shouldn't start Leeds, because Havertz, I definitely want Havertz to start against Liverpool. The question is just, does he play today or does he play Leeds? Because he will play one of them. Does he play tomorrow or does he play Leeds? I don't know.
I don't know.
I think he'll be okay, but that's another thing, though. By the way, why Premier League? Why? Do we have the FA Cup final against Liverpool on Saturday the 14th, and then in the midweek next week, we play Wednesday, Liverpool play Tuesday? Why wouldn't we play on the same day so we have the same amount of rest ahead of the final? Like, I wouldn't want it to be us on Tuesday and Liverpool on Wednesday either. Like, yeah, it would be an advantage to us.
Play on the same night, isn't it?
Just an unnecessarily stupid situation to create. Why not allow the same amount of preparation? I just cannot understand. And also, I think Liverpool have a home game, but we have an away game, obviously.
Yeah, I think Liverpool play Spurs tomorrow.
No, they do play away against Villa, to be fair.
Away to Villa.
Tuesday, on Tuesday.
Yeah. But yeah, no, there's not this interesting to me, because Wednesday, Saturday, particularly with a long away trip as well to Leeds, which is not exactly local. It's a proper trek to get out there. Yeah. I'm not saying that Villa's not a tough game away, but this is going to be a tough game with Leeds battling for their lives. So it'd be interesting to see
Gerrard will gift them the 3 points on a plate, mate.
Yeah,
there's no chance Gerrard will want to be the reason Liverpool don't win the league. No chance.
We'll have to see what happens. But I agree, Lukaku probably play. Mate, one final thing then. Score prediction tomorrow. Are we going to end our 2-game winless streak?
Yes, but it's not going to be pretty. I'm going to say 1-0.
Yeah, mate, I was thinking exactly the same. I think it's going to be potentially
either 1-0 or 1-1. Like, it's 1-0.
Yeah, I think it's
maybe 2-1, but those three. There's no other option.
I mean, mate, 3 goals is asking for quite a lot in a Chelsea game. I mean, even Wolves don't score that many goals at the moment. So, I mean, yeah, I think
conceded 3 against Brighton, and Brighton missed the pen.
Yeah, they got battered. Like, that's mad. I'll go. I think 1-0 as well. But like you, I think it's going to be scrappy. I don't think it's going to be pretty. And I wouldn't be surprised if we drop points again, if I'm being perfectly honest. But, I'm going to stay positive and say we just scrape a win. At the moment, I don't really care about these league matches in terms of performance. Just win. It really doesn't matter. We can play awful. Just get the points on the board. But that seems like a good point to round out. Mate, thank you so much for your time. As always, guys, make sure you check out Laurenz's channel. Subscribe to him now, mate. I've seen you're almost at 14K now, 13.9. So, yes, getting close. So, yeah, please do subscribe to Laurenz's channel. Link in the description below. So make sure you get on that and check it out. Some great content on there. Guys, for myself, please do smash a like on this video. Subscribe to the channel. Make sure I need to hit 500 subscribers by the end of the season. So we're on the road to that now. So make sure that does happen. So please do help me out. Yeah, but apart from that, hopefully Chelsea can return to winning ways tomorrow. I'll be back on, well, probably, yes, Saturday night with a match vlog from Chelsea Wolves at Stamford Bridge, and then maybe some player ratings as well, potentially. But until then, guys, take care and up the Chelsea.